I'm Sam Moffett, and we're at Shirttail Creek Farm, where we produce pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised chicken, and grass-fed beef. I run this farm with my wife, Carolyn, and our two kids, Ellie and Django.
Daddy said, don't talk to Mom because she's getting her persevere. And Daddy didn't want me to talk.
And so what did you do?
You know, we worked in digital advertising in Austin for like 13 years. And I don't know if you've ever done this at a job where you sit in your cubicle or whatever and you fantasize about what you could be doing. But I would like fantasize and watch, video content about these people that are out just connected to the earth and doing something that they felt was meaningful. We had given over a decade of our lives to career and prided ourselves in being hard workers and being successful, but we didn't really feel like we were adding any value anywhere to our community or to ourselves long term. I think I've always had a drive to figure out how I could have that connection, but like most people, you have to be willing to take a big leap and a big risk and expose yourself to the possibility that you're gonna fail and crash and burn, financially, personally, whatever.
We knew we were ready to kind of leave Austin, and we were thinking, we want to do a farm, we want to get outside the city, and we didn't look for that long before we found this place, and we just fell in love with it. We came out one weekend and we're like, yes.
It kind of happened organically because even when we bought the farm, we weren't planning on doing this. I was planning on having some cattle.
The goal was to produce food that we felt good about from start to finish.
Get ready, boys. Baby's coming.
Initially, we went in like gung-ho, we're going to be an organic, grass-fed beef producer.
Tell Shauna about how easy it is to grow organic beef in Texas.
Super easy. I think it's really hard.
We're not certified organic. We use organic practices on the farm, so we don't use any herbicides, pesticides, hormones, or antibiotics. But yeah, so we're not labeled organic.
To even get certified, it has to be like 3 years of clean soil on your property, which we don't spray and whatnot, but let's just say you had acquired your property. If the people before you sprayed, you're just in limbo for 3 years.
We could have gone through the whole rigmarole of getting certified organic on our farm for beef, but we couldn't have sold our beef as certified organic because there's no certified organic processing facility anywhere close to us. So that's why you don't see a lot of organic beef. Because the processing facility has to be dedicated to that, at least when it's processing that beef, and then they have to go through this whole, cleaning procedure to clean the whole place after they process conventionally raised beef.
You don't want to put your animals under the stress of a 6-hour drive somewhere to get it processed. Like, no, absolutely not.
Hurts. It's important to use really low stress handling techniques. Stress is actually one of the biggest factors in like the quality of your steaks and stuff. Toughness of meat.
Stress?
Yeah, stress.
What kind of things cause stress?
Well, just being handled in a really a lot of yelling and hitting and just poking them with a cattle prod. It doesn't do as much good as people think. And the worst is when you go to harvest, to process. If they're not used to people, then they get really stressed. When they go to the processor, and you want to have them really used to people so they're not as stressed.
I think it's extremely difficult. We realized we couldn't go that route from the start once that kind of came into play. It's been a progression, I would say. The beef thing wasn't going to cut it for us as far as allowing us to just be on the farm and make a living off of. We don't have enough land to have a large enough herd to support our family. So we were like, what else can we do?
I told Carolyn one day, I was like, I think we should buy a few hundred chickens and see if we can make awesome eggs. And she's like, what? You know, we're still figuring out the cattle thing. What are you talking about? I would say, let's see what they look like. I don't know, we probably could just put 400 in there. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 50 in here, yeah. 10.
1,500 chicks.
1,100.
What makes your eggs so good?
Well, they come from Shirttail Creek Farm. So our eggs are unique. Our birds have a lot of room to roam and forage. We try to provide as much leafy green forage for them as we can. That in turn results in darker yolks. And you know, we feed them a custom milled feed that's high in carotenoids, specifically xanthophylls, which is, I'm not going to go off on that whole thing, but foods that are high in that include turnips, kale, broccoli, alfalfa, a lot of leafy green stuff. And yeah, they're just awesome. I mean, what am I supposed to say? I don't know, they're badass.
Space is just such a crucial factor for the chickens. What we give them is extensive, which I think is different sometimes than from other free range or pasture raised situations. We move them once a week to fresh ground. We are rotating so that the pasture is getting the nutrients it needs from the chickens and that the chickens are getting what they need from the pasture.
So you did 5, 3, and 1?
5, 3, and I'm almost done with 2.
So I need to do 1 and 4.
These 2 on this end.
It's been so much work and we've learned so much. Like the chickens we had no background in, so you know, everything we've done we've researched and tried to figure out.
And the more we learn, the more passionate we got about it. And the more we learn still about regenerative ag and everything, the more passionate we get about that. The sun hemp is kind of an organic matter powerhouse. This is what people do in regenerative grazing is they plant cover crops, including lots of legumes that help fix nitrogen in the soil and eliminates your need to buy
Nitrogen
fertilizer.
fertilizer,
Yeah. You know, the problem with using synthetic fertilizers in the soil primarily is when you're feeding your plants synthetic fertilizer and you're totally dependent on that, you're just not helping the microbes in the soil thrive. As compared to commodity meat and egg and stuff that people buy at the store, our practices are far more sustainable, better for the environment, better for the animals, and in turn more nutritious for the person that's consuming it. Yeah, God, there's a whole 200-page book I could, but yeah, I mean, fundamentally that we use sustainable and regenerative practices on our farm to produce what we produce. And grass-fed beef it's scientifically proven that grass-fed beef is nutritionally superior to grain-finished beef. And pasture-raised eggs are, higher in omega-3s. What you'll see when you drive around ranch country in Texas, and probably in a lot of places, is a lot of overstocked and overgrazed pasture. Back in the day, everybody grew cotton and corn and just mined the nutrition out of the soil. And then the soil wasn't good enough to get good yields with those crops. And so they started running cattle on the land and they overgrazed it and they cut hay and they just took and took and took. And now you were in a situation where you see a lot of pasture that should look really good, especially this time of year that doesn't, because the soil's mined out, and you see a lot of weeds growing because the soil nutrition is shit. What we do that's a little different, a lot of folks are doing, is to use pasture management techniques that actually leverage the animals to add value to the soil instead of doing the opposite. And what's funny about it is it actually is really advantageous. You can stock a lot more animals on a pasture if you manage it correctly. And when you have the animals in on a small space, all the pissing and shitting they do actually adds a ton of nutrition to the soil, and they're pushing seeds into the ground and doing everything. You can read about this. And then they get off and let the ground rest, like it would have if a herd of buffalo came through 1,000 years ago. You know what I mean? If you can mimic that behavior, that's what the land wants. And I think you're seeing a lot more people start to explore and start using regenerative agriculture practices to improve their operation. It's pretty neat what you can do to positively impact the soil. You know, people come to me and they're like, yeah, I guess I need to spray, you know, get ready to spray. I got weed problems. Like, man, you need to shred first of all, you need to shred. Second of all, you need to fix your soil fertility, and then you need to have plants growing that shade out your weeds and crowd them out and compete with them. I mean, it's not rocket science. Spraying is going to fix the problem for one season, and then shit's going to come right back. You're just giving your money to Monsanto.
Watch them every time.
You will?
Yes, and if they're fall off, I will try to catch them, and I will.
Okay, thanks. That'd be great. What we noticed when we started the farm was that there is an increased awareness among consumers about where their food's coming from. Not just what's on the label or in the marketing. Consumers are demanding more transparency, and I think that's a really good thing.
That became very clear for us once we actually owned this land and we had this kind of at our disposal. It was like, oh, well, we can produce something that, you know, we don't have to go buy. And we like the fact that we can share that with people. We know what we're producing is great quality and we can feel good about it, and we would hope that people would feel good coming to buy our stuff, which I think that's what the goal of most farmers is, you know.
We raise these birds from when they're day-old chicks, and we know they're going to lay eggs for us, and you know they're taking care of us. We want to take care of them. I think it's just a matter of mutual respect, and they're really amazing. I mean, if you watch them forage and do what they do to produce these awesome eggs, it's pretty neat. You kind of want to give them the best of everything so that they have the best chance at just being happy.
And then with the broilers, it's great to see them being chickens. You know, they're kind of considered like a meat bird, and that's their sole purpose. And it's still good to see an animal be an animal. We were trying to encourage everybody to live how they should.
Crust in your eyes, girl. She's like this weird cow that's like a dog. I don't know how to explain it.
She likes scratches, and she likes getting it all on her head.
Most of them won't let you do this, but ever since she was a baby, she's just like allowed this, and all the other, her mom included, would look at her and be like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? He's a predator. In our food system, food is really heavily commoditized.
With how grocery stores are set up, if they have what you need, then you don't really have to think about where it's coming from. It's just there, and that's what you want and need.
Well, that's really efficient for the food system to be able to just go get a piece of meat and take it home and eat it, right? It's not good for our awareness about food, and people have just grown to turning a blind eye toward, you know, food and trusting the labels, and there's a lot of misleading marketing out there, and not necessarily dishonest marketing, but misleading. You know, it's funny because like when we started doing this, going to farmers markets and stuff, we realized how emotional the food buying decision is with people. If it's got the right packaging and it makes you feel like it's natural, then you're like, oh, that's cool, when really you don't know, you know? So people make a lot of assumptions about food, and I think this just sort of increased awareness, the movement, if you will, about understanding where food's coming from is just causing people to ask more questions and be more skeptical and think more about it.
I'm just gonna drop these. Try not to fall. So yeah, my technical system is, it's really just to like not eat it 9 times a day. It's really practicing to be a ninja.
Having a connection to your local farmer is a really good thing, and I think a lot of people are realizing that. When we first started the farm, our goal was to just make enough to live and create a lifestyle for our kids and ourselves that was genuine and fulfilling and healthy. But what's funny is I think what we found since we've started doing this is that the response from the marketplace, if you will, the response from people is that I think there's a bigger demand for sustainably raised food than there is a supply in many cases. You know, pricing is an issue sometimes. Not everybody can go to Whole Foods, and so we're really excited by the opportunity to be a producer and produce a good product. And we're kind of building our farm around a wholesale model because we want to be able to provide something at a price that's accessible to most people.
What is the worst part about running a farm?
What's the worst part?
I mean, all of it's been a challenge. I think a lot of it is timing is kind of hard. I wouldn't have expected that. Just, you know, we've been in such like a growth phase of getting things done that, you know, getting the houses built or getting the brooders built, it was basically like infrastructure over these years. Like that timing was stressful at times because, you know, you have to get the chicks out of the brooder by a certain point because they need to be out in the pasture. It's been a very fast 3 years to get to like where we're at right now with our laying hens and the broilers and the cattle. I feel like I've aged 10 in 3 years.
Well, oh man. See, the thing is, to be truthful, I really, even when it's shitty, I really love it. Here's the thing. A lot of people come to us and they're like, oh man, I'm kind of interested in getting into farming. I want to learn about it. Tell me what it's like, or I want to come work for a day on your farm or whatever. And we've had people that we've hired to come work that do it for a couple days and they're like, yeah, this isn't what I thought. And so I would say that there is the idea of this beautiful farm, the grass and the animals and new babies plopping out and great food and the eggs are beautiful, whatever. And that's all very real. That's like a really real part of it. But then there is also a whole nother part of it that a lot of people don't think about, which is when it's 28 degrees and sleeting and midnight and you've got chickens on the pasture that you've got to get into heat because they got wet and they're going to die, or you've got a mama cow calving at 2 in the morning when you got to get up at 5 and drive to Austin for a farmer's market, it can kind of suck in those moments. And you know, we work 14 or 15 hours a day. I mean, we're on the job 14 to 15 hours a day, but again, it doesn't feel like work all the time. We have to check the heifer, we got to go update the egg board, and we got to process orders, and we got to move paddocks around for our cattle and whatever. But I mean, shit, you know, I'm out on my farm doing what we love, and I don't know. I don't think there's a worse part for me. I feel like I'm really lucky to be doing this. People are being nourished with food that comes from our farm. Like, what greater honor can there be? I spent over a decade in an office, half the time kind of like staring out the window, feeling like wishing that I was living my life with more purpose, you know? And I mean, I really feel like I've found that. You know, I really do. It's pretty awesome.